we're gonna dive right in to our first presenters. Placer County Water Agency. Justin and Mackenzie are going to talk about their GIS-based canal flow management. This is a great presentation, really interesting use of our software. So I'm gonna pass it over to Justin and Mackenzie.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mackenzie Collins, and I'm a GIS technician at Placer County Water Agency. And along with me is Justin Rollins. He's our canal operations supervisor. I'll speak very shortly on a few key points about my part in this project. And then Justin will speak to the canal operator's day-to-day workflow and how this project has impacted his team. My role in this project was kind of the builder or designer for the survey in Survey 123 Connect, and I built the dashboard as well. We really wanted to make this survey accessible and easy to get started, so it wasn't a lot to learn when we gave it to the operators. Our goals were to have a very streamlined data entry process and a very simplistic interface. So our survey uses a lot of context and relevancy just to show the users what they need to see. The survey does calculations automatically for the operators. So it calculates the flow of water going through the gates in our canal system. We did have a lot of help from Esri solutions engineers during the design process, and they really helped us achieve our goals. So I just wanted to give them some kudos. They've always been really great to work with. So thank you very much. And now I'll hand it over to Justin.
All right, thank you, Mackenzie. Yeah, we got a lot to present in just a little bit of time, so I'm going to go through this stuff pretty quickly. Like Mackenzie said, my name is Justin Rollins. I'm the Canal Operations Supervisor for Placer County Water Agency. Placer County Water Agency is located in Northern California in the greater Sacramento region. I've worked for Placer County Water Agency for about 15 years, as a supervisor for 4. And prior to my role as a supervisor, I was a canal operator for 8 years. So I'm going to talk about this app from both perspectives. PCWA is made up of 2 different divisions. We have a hydro division and a water division. In the water division, we have both raw and treated water customers, but the reason we're here today is to talk about the raw water system. Just a little background on our raw water conveyance system. Placer County Water Agency owns and operates and maintains approximately 165 miles of raw water conveyance. Of that, we have 62 miles of lined gunite canal. Gunite's what an in-ground pool would be made out of. 40 miles of unlined earthen canal, 1.5 miles of flume, 56 miles of underground raw water pipelines, 3.5 miles of tunnel. In total, we have 61 canals and pipelines that deliver anywhere from 1 to 2 CFS up to our bigger canals that are anywhere from 65 to 70 CFS. Those canals feed around 4,200 irrigation customers and 13 water treatment plants. This excludes all water used for hydro operations. Most of the water we use derives from PG&E's Drum Spalding watershed, or it's pumped up from the American River into our system. That water is then gravity fed through our conveyance system because our canal system is so large and complex. And I do realize that it's not as large and compared to so many other water districts in the nation, but it's fairly large for this area and the amount of raw water customers we serve. Because our area is so big, we have our system broken up into 6 areas of operation. Like I said previously, our system is gravity fed, so each of those 6 areas is affected by the operator above them in one way or another. So communication amongst the operator is key in moving water on a day-to-day basis. Some of the types of information the operators need to know or need to be made aware of are the current flows in each of the canals, any changes in flow, whether the canal was increased or decreased, reservoir levels, any large service connections that have been shut on, off, etc. Prior to the development of the new canal operator flow app, PCWA operators documented historic data. And by historic data, I mean data that is collected that needs to live within PCWA archives forever, the old school way, pen to paper. Each operator had their own truck, which also serves as their mobile office. And in that truck, they carried around a box shown in this slide here, which they stored all their paperwork. That box normally sits on the passenger seat of their small single cab vehicle. As you can see, this box takes up a ton of room, but the information in it is essential to their everyday workload. And if an operator had to run 2 areas, let's say somebody was on vacation, sick, you name it, he'd have to get their box from that operator. So just imagine running an area with 2 of these boxes sitting on your seat. In this box, each operator had a flow logbook that was specific to their area of operation, and each day that operator would go out and obtain flows for predetermined sites to verify they had sufficient water throughout their system. The information we're looking for is the name of the operator running the area, the date each one of these reads is taken, the time of each read, the staff gauge reading, and what that reading is converted to flow in CFS. This is a rating table for one of our canals. I'm not sure if this is a standard format for all rating tables or if it's unique to PCWA. I'm sure every hydrographer has their own method for converting staff readings to flow. But in this example, to convert the staff gauge to flow, you take the staff gauge height from the canal and it tells you the discharge rate in CFS. Every YB point has a flow chart that's specific to that site and has been rated by a hydrographer. Some of these sites have 2 different flow charts, one for winter water when the flows are relatively low, and another for summer water when the demand and flows are obviously much higher. You'd be amazed how often these flows were documented with wrong information. Sometimes the discharge rate didn't match the gauge height, or the operator used the wrong flow chart altogether. Things just happen. Here's an example of one of our spill record logbooks. Once again, we're looking for the canal, the spill or blow off that's being operated, the name or location of that spill, the maximum capacity of the spill, the date it was operated, the time it was open and closed, and the estimated amount of water that was released, and the reasoning behind why we're spilling the water, whether it was for gunite, canal cleaning, maintenance, true removal, emergency, whatever the reasoning was. These logbooks, once filled out, had a carbon copy that was saved in the logbook. And the original went to myself or to a lead to input that information into an Excel file that is stored on a shared file in the agency's G drive. With 6 operators working 6 days a week, that's a ton of inputting, between 1,100 and 1,200 pages of information that we entered every single year. With the operators would keep the carbon copy in their logbook so that they or any other operator that ran that area could collect it, and they would know what was done the previous day, week, month, year. Once all the data was inputted, we would take the original log and file it away in a binder. Up until last year, we had between 120 and 150 binders of flow data that we had collected over the years. We had so much data stored in these binders, we actually had to hire a temporary employee to come in and scan each one of these logs into Questies to make more room in our office. Anytime an operator needed to access this historic data, they would have to come back to the office and go through these old logbooks to find the information they needed, or access a computer and log into Questies and electronically scroll through the daily flow charts to find the information they needed. We tried on multiple occasions throughout the years to come up with a way to electronically store data that the operators collect, but have failed every time. I'm not sure how everyone else's water system works, but ours is unique in the sense that we have many different size canals. Like I said previously, some flows a couple CFS while others flow up to 70. Our system is composed of different types and sizes of head gates. Some are round, some are square, some are automated. We're really trying hard. I think most agencies in the world to save water, so we're trying to automate our raw water system as much as possible. Some of our flow measurements are taken by the head gate opening and the level of the canal upstream of the gate. Some are measured by a partial flume, others with staff gauges or ultrasonic flow and level sensors. We have many different ways of gathering all this information, but we needed a way to store this information electronically. With the new flow app, we have finally moved into the 21st century, no paper. All we really need is our cell phone and our tablets. With the new flow app, all the data that is gathered by the operators is instantly available for everyone to see in real time. Communication is still important amongst the operators, but much of the information they need can easily be searched on the dashboard. If an operator takes time off, we don't have to meet up with them to get all their logbooks, spill records, flow charts, route books, everything that they store inside that box. Everything they need is in this app or on GIS. Here's an example of what you see when you open the app. The date and time timestamp are documented with every transaction. There's a list of the 6 areas of operation. All you do is select the area you're running and what you're documenting, the facility type, whether it's a predetermined site, a spill, blow off, or a reservoir. Then you select the facility type, which has a drop down for all the sites in that area, and enter the staff reading in this case, which will automatically populate and flow in CFS. No more operator error. We have 2 examples here. The first, which is a slide in the rear, is an example of a facility type where the flow is based on the staff gauge reading and a gate opening. Once each is selected, the flow rate will populate in CFS. The other is an example of a reading where we would have taken it off of SCADA or an automated gate. All you do is enter the flow manually and it'll populate below in your flow rate box in CFX. Here's an example of how we document our spills and blow-offs. Same format, the facility type changes from YB point to blow-off spill. Then you select the spill or blow-off you're going to use. In this case, it's the Boardman Canal at Cleese Spill. As you can see, when the facility type is selected, it informs you what the maximum CFS you can spill at that location is. You select what the date and time you open the facility and the amount of water you're discharging up to the maximum rate, which in this case is 15 CFS, and what day and time you closed the blow off. The documentation of how often we use these spills and blow offs and how much water we're releasing is becoming more and more important. We've had to use some of this documentation in lawsuits against the agency on a number of occasions where, for example, we released a specified amount of water down a spill and it blew out someone's private pond that was constructed in our spillway, or destroyed a driveway because a property owner installed an undersized culvert that couldn't handle the flow. Documentation is vital to maintaining our spill rights. Same thing here with the reservoir elevations. Select the area and the reservoir you want to document and the elevation of the reservoir. These are all manual entries, and the reading will populate. As a supervisor, I love the fact that this data is easily searchable. Here's the dashboard that I have open on my desktop at all times, so that I know what's going on within our system. I can get reservoir levels, search areas, search the flows by areas, or break it down to search specific points within our system, and I can do it down to the month, week, day, or even day. And get the max flow, the minimum flow, and the average flow of each buy point within our system. This information may not seem important to most people, but it's essential to the operational success of the water agency, and it's a great way for me to manage our water supply. It helps me to gather flow information for our weed and brush crew for algicide treatments without having to contact each operator to find specific flows within their area. It allows me to quickly gather data, dates, times, flows, duration water is spilling for our spill and blow off records, determine how often we use them and how much water we are releasing to maintain our spill rights for now and for the future. With the whole COVID-19 stay-at-home pandemic, this app really has been a blessing. It got rolled out in the midst of our stay-at-home order, and it's made it really easy for the operators to communicate electronically and maintain our social distancing. Prior to the pandemic, our operators would meet at the end of every working day in our office and go over what was done in each area so that the standby guy was aware for any calls they may receive after hours. Now, as long as the operators input all the information they did for the day, this app really does that for us. Each day, the operators log their notes for the day, as well as any flow changes, reservoir levels. The notes contain information such as leaks, services that have been turned on or off for any reason, delinquent locks, no water, anything the operator did out of the normal daily operations like cleaning screens and racks, patrolling, documenting reads. This really helps the standby personnel on after-hour calls to determine if it's a call that needs an immediate response or if it's an issue that can be resolved over the phone. So this really has been a blessing. I just, I want to say thanks to Mackenzie and everyone else that was involved in developing this app. It's a game changer, and it really has helped us to do our job as canal operators to run our water flow and watershed as in the best way we can possible. So thanks much.
Thanks, Justin. As he was saying, there are data requirements to all of the records that are entered, being that they are legal records for PCWA. So we did need to make sure that once the operator submitted his data, that it couldn't be changed. So we can prove that when if it's brought up in court. So on ArcGIS Online, we have the feature layer as not editable, and we have a nightly script that runs and writes all of the data to a SQL database, and the data there is only able to be accessed for view and export. We also have another level of data accessibility in SQL reporting services that, alongside the dashboard, just really makes the data accessible and easy to find what you're looking for, rather than going through our old system of Questies or in an Excel sheet. Just a lot more easy. Like Susie was saying, we are Advantage Program members. Sorry if it has a different name at this point. Susie can answer questions about what that program is. Thanks so much. I think we can take some questions.
All right, with that, I will pass it to Amanda so she can share her story with you. Are you ready, Amanda?
I am ready to go. How's everybody doing today?
I'm assuming they're doing great because, we love these meetings.
Of course. They're wonderful. Yeah. This is my only second one, but I have enjoyed it so far, and it's really exciting that I get to present this one. I'm sure I am showing the correct screen.
Yep, we can see your slide, West Jackson County Utility District.
All right, well, I am from the Deep South. We are in the state of Mississippi on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And everyone always asks me why I don't have a huge, strong Southern accent. It's because I am from the Gulf Coast and it's not quite as strong down here. I have one, it's just not as strong. So we are at West Jackson County Utility District, and my presentation is all about moving to the future of our district and getting the GIS up and running as we move forward. We are a district of about 8,900 customers, water and sewer, in a small little area called St. Martin, Mississippi, which is just north of Ocean Springs and east of Biloxi, Mississippi. And most people know where Biloxi is because of the fact of Hurricane Katrina. It's a downfall, but that's just the way it is. Our district size is about 27 square miles. And like I said, we're not a huge district. We are in a small utility agreement with Esri, so that we're just trying to get to the next levels for our developing our databases and things that we're using for Esri. So in the beginning, that's where I'm going to start. Our databases were not existent. We were using as-builts and CAD drawings to determine whether valves are, water lines, things that are in the ground, and just people in the fields using their personal knowledge to understand where things were at. And there's a lot of downsides with this because a paper map, most CAD drawings are very large documents. As-built are the same. So it was hard to bring them in the field to determine where they're at. And if you couldn't bring it in the field, you had to keep coming to the office to determine where things were at. Personal knowledge is great for temporary, but if that person decides to leave the company or they decide to retire, that information goes with them, and there's no way to pass that information on over generations. So it made it very difficult to determine how things were going, where things were at, and how to move forward with this. Well, and then came Esri. About 2007, 2008, West Jackson County decided to bring Esri into our slew of information. We started with ArcMap and our catalog, bringing the database in and just doing a basic database. It wasn't shared with anything, but it started building the map to get our assets on a map so that we could share it a little easier and to make things a little more understanding. So the personal knowledge is no longer an avenue that we have anymore. We have that personal knowledge, but it's going into a map, so we have it for years and years and years. As we move forward, we decided we were going to start using TopCon for our GIS locating of these assets. With TopCon, they were a great asset for a short period of time, but unfortunately, as we moved forward, they decided not to continue helping utilities, and they went to a different avenue, just surveying. They weren't supporting us anymore, so we had to find a new avenue. But in the midst of that, we've got, in 2016, we brought Novotics into our forte also, where we started using their Element software, which is a work management asset software, to start getting that information into the field of all the stuff that we're collecting at that point. All the assets in the ground, the water mains, the sewer valves, the sewer service connections, anything that could be located in a map, we put on the map. With that Novotics and TopCon technology, we were able to get accurate centimeter grade locations of every asset we had in the field, which is great asset for every one of our workers out there trying to find things if something goes wrong. And this also allowed us to start building that asset management system and the location of every asset in the system. And then, of course, we started publishing service to ArcGIS Online, which we ended up buying quite a few iPads so that the guys in the field can start looking at our maps through the Element software. So now they no longer had to find a paper map or based on somebody's knowledge of where something was at, they had it at their fingertips of going into the field and looking at things and finding the stuff that we needed. So as we started expanding, we also decided to go from TopCon to Trimble because TopCon no longer supported us. And with Trimble, we were able to start getting even sub-centimeter grade accuracy based on their R2 unit. We were able to develop more maps with more information on them. We also were able to develop maps that could give us limited information. So if we don't need the whole system on a map, we were able to downsize it into just certain things that they wanted. This brought us into the next step, which is moving into ArcPro. I started here in 2019 in November. Scott Ramsey, which was my direct supervisor, was the one that brought us to this level. And then at this point, I took over in November of 2019 and started developing ArcPro because he informed me shortly after I got here, oh, by the way, ArcMap is going to be moving out at some point, so we need to go ahead and start moving forward. And I jumped on the opportunity and started learning ArcPro. I took my first class and then started developing more maps, started publishing more services to ArcGIS Online through the Share Web Map, and now I'm trying to build onto move on to more feature services. So this is allowing us to do a lot more with our projects through ArcPro. We're able to develop projects with multiple maps on it, which is very nice because you can have everything at one location. And of course, you have multiple layouts in that map, and you have multiple reports you can run off of it. You can have multiple servers attached, multiple databases, so you're not limited anymore. As we move forward into ArcGIS Online and ArcServer, we had a lot more opportunities to share our data outside of our organization. We deal a lot more with engineers, building new subdivisions, rectifying our current assets and making them better. So we're able to publish this map so that field crews can see it, which made it great as we're updating every day the data gets uploaded and we get published out there. So all the new assets are in the ground. Every one of the field workers can see it. It's wonderful. And that's going through our ARC Server Manager software and ArcGIS Online. We are also trying to get things straightened out so we can start using a portal tab and going into portal. But I have been able to update the data, which was something new for me, to understand how to update the portal tab on ARC Pro. So it made it a lot easier whenever assets were being brought into the system. I could just pull up the portal map that I have on feature services through ArcGIS Online and import the data, copy and paste it into my database, and it uploaded automatically, which was made it so much easier and so much more user-friendly for me to do, which was really nice. And then, of course, also as we move forward into the next set of server information in ArcGIS Online, we use a lot of engineers, like I told you, through this, and to get to the next level, our engineers are important. So we decided we're going to start trying to collaborate with them better. And through ARC Pro and CAD's agreement, Esri's agreement with ArcCAD, we were able to go ahead and take care of this. We started adding district drawings to our maps through just the collaboration, accessing the district drawings and aiding the engineering firms in the area for pre-construction design and construction design. As they're moving forward, we can see there's problems and they can address them immediately. I've also allowed some of the engineers that we're working with, that we have contracts with, to access our maps online. So they no longer have to call me and say, hey, I need this information. They can just go online, pull up the map, and download the data into CAD software to make it easier. This was one great aspect. When I first started, I was able to pull the CAD drawings in, or we were working on one of our big projects in the area, and they said this was one of the best things they could have, because we were able to collaborate with 5 different engineers, with our director and our crew, all at one time in one office, with our big old screen TVs and our desktops, and said, hey, this is the data we have. It's on our map. This is where it's going to work. This is where it's not going to work. And it was a really great collaboration tool for us. So if anyone's interested in that, let me know. Nextly, I'm going to go ahead and start talking about the current apps we are using from Esri. Of course, I've already spoken about ArcGIS Online. We have used Collector. We're using field maps. We're working with dashboards, and we also are working towards Survey 123 and do have current surveys. In Collector, I first entitled this with the Trimble software. We were having some issues with some data transfer with the Trimble software, so we decided, hey, let's use the Trimble devices, but use an Esri database to make it a more simple workflow. So it enabled us to get better data collection. It kept our maps and field crews in sync, like I was talking about with Pro. It was easier to update the maps because it's all interconnected with Esri, which we're not having to use third-party software anymore. So it just made it a lot easier to get through the data and to understand it better, and to get us into the right next step of where Esri was going. So our next step, of course, was field maps. We decided that we were going to go ahead and develop our field maps and get to the next step in increasing productivity when I kind of found out that Collector was going away and they integrated it all into one app. Of course, with this, that did increase our usability. Field maps run smoother than Collector for our day-to-day works. It adapts to the GPS tracking very quickly instead of giving us more of a lag. We were having some issues with it getting in sync real quick, so that helped out with the new field maps. Connecting to workforce, which is something we're going to be going towards, and then of course connecting to dashboards, which is a huge asset for us because we want to start integrating that more into our day-to-day things. The next thing we've been using are trying to get up and running is our operation dashboards. I have developed a couple of dashboards for our stakeholders and our directors and our board members. And this information here is just showing how our system is set up. Our water system and then our sewer and force and gravity mains are set up, and how many we have, all the assets that are attached to it. and what things that are going to be going into it to kind of give them information that they would need to make reports or to find out to make some good decisions. And then, of course, the third one I made is an emergency management dashboard. It also works as our work order dashboard, which we're not using quite yet. I'm trying to get that implemented. But what that's going to give us is an opportunity for the guys in the field to see a current map of the work orders that are there, and anyone that's in the dispatch office is going to be able to see the map, where the associates are located, the field workers are located, and also give us a weather map. That way they can kind of say, hey, guys, we're going to have some bad weather coming in, so this is what you need to be doing, this is what you need to prepare for. It'll help with safety. And the way I've developed this is through, I brought in the NOAA data from the ArcGIS catalog, and then I just published it with a map and then attached it to the dashboard that we're using. And of course, that'll give us situational awareness. The last thing, of course, I'm going to talk about is our survey 123. I have developed one survey 123 so far. It is our developer ability to access our data. So anyone that's coming in that's thinking about possibly developing our data can pull up the survey off of our website and show it and fill out the questions. It will be directly emailed to me saying that there's requested data, and also to our inspection officer so he knows, hey, we've got a developer possibly looking at our area. Or if they've already a developer that's already here wanting some data that they need for like where our sewer mains are, what sizes they are, things like that, so that we can give them that information and help them understand what they're looking at when they're trying to develop. Because of course, if you have data, it's better than all the way around. The other option that we're working towards is developing a survey 123 that'll handle our customer service calls to kind of make it easier for them and for our associates, because the less time you have to spend on the phone, the less time it's going to have to worry about what's going on next. You can get to the next job, or if you have an emergency, you don't have to worry about answering a phone call. You have an email coming, hey, we have a work order that's being requested because something is going wrong or something, they need help with something. It'll make it a lot easier for our associates. And not only that, the customer doesn't want to spend a whole lot of time on the phone when it comes to certain things. They've got busy lives also. So we're just trying to make it easier on both. And that survey will be attached to our work order survey to help our dispatchers see what's going on also. So that's our next step. And as we move forward, we are going to be developing the workforce app, which will allow work orders to be published and keeping track of our associates and where they're at, so we can tell when they're on break, when they're not on break, where they're at close to another call if it comes through, so we can assign it to the right place so workflows are a little easier. We're going to be using quick capture for our emergency management. Of course, being on the Gulf Coast, we are unfortunately very apt to have hurricanes. And if hurricanes come through, we want to be able to assess our damages very quickly. So we're going to be adapting a quick capture app for emergency management. So that way, when we do have any emergencies come across, we can go ahead and get somebody out there quickly and decide where we need to send everybody to. We're looking at integrating more dashboards and integrating network utilities into those dashboards so that we can start doing network tracing and having to make it easier so we can learn how to adjust for shutting off valves if we have a broken water line. And then, of course, ArcGIS Insights to develop our data and to kind of understand where our data is going, which is a big deal for, of course, a water utility. We need to understand where the water's going, how it's affecting the customers, and understanding exactly where everything is going at this point. And for us, it's only the beginning. Thank you.
All right, so my job today is to share some resources with you, and some of this you might already know, some of it might be new to you, but before I start with this screen sharing, I do want to ask a polling question. This is my own poll. I'm excited. I don't usually get my own polls. Okay, do you know who your account manager is? And the reason I ask this is because they're your first resource. Your account manager is the person that should be able to help you answer questions, connect you with the right Esri staff that can help you to be successful, provide links like what I'm going to show you today, and really be your partner at your utility. So I'm just interested to see how many of you know who your account manager is. And if you're one of the no's, don't feel bad, because I was a customer before coming to Esri. There were times that I did not know who my account manager is. You guys, Esri people will be happy to know that about 80% of our audience is saying yes, they know who their account managers are. So there's 20% of you that don't know. So my next follow-up poll is, all right, do you want your account manager to reach out to you and introduce themselves, say hi, answer any questions you might have? And if you answer yes to this polling question, we will make sure that your account manager follows up with you and introduces themselves. Particularly the water team, we can guarantee someone's going to reach out. Even if you're not a water designated Esri customer, don't worry, we will still reach out to our colleagues at Esri and let them know that you're interested in getting to know them. So thank you everyone for answering that poll. I will close it. Just wanted to take a quick second to make sure we're able to connect you with the right account manager. So going back to our resources, this webpage you're seeing here is our water industry website. And some of you may have visited this page a lot of times, and some of you might not have known that we have these industry specific web pages. I didn't know as a customer, so this is why I'm sharing this particular resource. Water utilities, you can see as you scroll down the page, there are different topics. Each one of these will take you to another page to learn more. 3 of these have ebooks associated with them if you haven't seen our ebook, and we have a customer engagement ebook coming soon. As you continue down the page, you'll see that we have some customer success stories highlighted, additional stories down here. We really want to share with our community the successes that are happening, business solutions. These are high level informational products that just let you know what's out there. And of course, your account manager can help answer any questions. And then news and events and resources at the bottom here. We try to include ebooks, solutions, technical papers, webinars in this resources section that we hope you find interesting and useful. We have the same kind of setup for water resources. So if you're a water resources professional, we have a water resources page. It has several different topics. The 1 or 2 components of this page that I find customers really like are this Arc Hydro link will take you to a new Arc Hydro site that has a lot of resources specific to Arc Hydro. It has guides, success stories, several technical guides. So if you're an Arc Hydro user or interested in that, you'll want to check out this page. And our community. And if you look up here, you'll see a navigation bar so you can get to these pages if you just go to esri.com/water. Again, this community page is focused on all of you. What have you been doing with our software? What's your success story? Sharing it with our community. You can sign up for our newsletter, which we have an issue coming out this June. You can check out our Water GIS Heroes. This is something we started this year, late last year, beginning of this year. So if you haven't seen this yet, check it out. We have some great successes and heroes that are out there really advocating for ArcGIS and making a difference at their organization. Next, I want to focus on ArcGIS Solutions. If you're not familiar with ArcGIS Solutions, these are pre-configured maps and applications that help you jumpstart the work you're doing at your organization based on best practices and the work our professional services team and our solutions team have done with customers. You can see we have sewer, storm, and water distribution. You click on one of these links, and it takes you to the different solutions that are available to download. So if you're a customer, you're on maintenance, these are free for you to download. And there's a wide variety. As a side note, it's not just water. We have ArcGIS solutions in other industries too. So local government has solutions for like public works. We have health and human services. We have disaster response. So if you're not familiar with ArcGIS solutions, you might want to check out this content as well. And our community, formerly known as GeoNet. If you're not a part of this community, you might want to get involved. And to me, the most valuable part of our community are the questions. So as a customer, you can post questions in this community. And it's not just Esri experts, although they are involved. This is where you can really connect with other users and find out if someone else is trying to do something that you've already done, or you're trying to do something they've already done, and get answers to your questions and start engaging with other Esri customers in these communities. And again, not just water. We have communities like this across all kinds of industries. All right, I'm moving along, Eric. I don't want to cut into your demo time. Meetup group. Hopefully a lot of you are part of our Esri Water Meetup. The best thing about Esri Water Meetup is this is usually the first spot that's going to have an event or activity listed. A spring water user group meeting, webinars, if we ever get back to in-person meetings, if we're doing workshops. We used to do workshops at our regional offices. If we're presenting or doing a workshop with Esri partners, this is usually the first place it's going to pop up. So if you want to just stay connected and know what's going on with Esri Water, our meetup group's a great place. And that leads perfectly into social media. We post a lot on social media. We share stories, we share announcements, we let you know when registrations are open for different Esri conferences. If you're not following us, maybe you're not even on social, and that's fine. Like Meetup's the self-service place. Like you just go there, you can see if there's anything listed up and coming. Social, you're gonna want to follow us on Esri Water Twitter. We have an Esri Water Utilities group on LinkedIn. We have a water resources group too. And you can follow me personally as well. So I post a lot. I'm pretty active. I like to share all kinds of content. It's not always Esri content. Sometimes I just see a painted water tower that I like and I'll share it, or I'll read an article that I like and I'll share it. So you follow me as well. And I think that's it. This was the West Jackson user story. I think Mariah shared a link in our chat. This really talks about the beginning of their GIS story. So you might check that out. And again, a lot of stories you can access on these industry specific websites. Okay, that was a lot. So if you missed anything, if there's something in there that seemed particularly interesting to you, feel free to chat or question, and we'll make sure to follow up with you. Mariah will work to get these links in an email that'll go out after the webinar. Hopefully some of it was interesting. I know that was super fast, but we're all excited to see Eric's demo.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Krista. And, just keeping the enthusiasm for all things GIS rolling along, let's go ahead and jump into it here. I really got to say, though, everyone did such a phenomenal job with the earlier presentations. I really hope I can keep that momentum going here. So what do I really want to talk about? Well, what I want to be able to focus on is really the idea behind all that data that you're collecting. How do you, maybe start to make a little bit more sense of it? So, from our earlier presentations, we saw examples of survey 1, 2, 3 and field maps pulling in all of this data coming in from the field. What can we begin to do with that? How can we begin to find trends and patterns? And then how can we take it also and then share it with others as well? This is just so critical. We have that information and we want to do something with it. So if maybe you've seen some of my other presentations, even from the last user group, we took a look at insights for main breaks. We're not going to be seeing that demo this time. So we're going to be using insights to dive into our data, in this case, in a totally new way. As well as then how can we share that out with something like a story map? And we're going to actually kind of do a little bit of off-roading and do some work with these applications, which is just a phenomenal way by which we can interact with this data. So let's go ahead
Which
and.
reminds me, Eric, we had more polls.
Oh, we did have more polls, didn't we? We were just so excited to get started.
I know, but you asked for it and you're getting it. We do have a poll. If you guys would just take a second. Does your organization have a strategy for identifying where lead service lines are located? And Eric's going to go through some demos, so you'll see why he's asking these questions. But if you would take a second, do you have a strategy for identifying where lead service lines are located? All right, Eric, right now we have 24% saying not yet, 39% saying no, and 38% saying yes. So it's somewhat of a close division. The answers are still coming in, so I'm just going to give it another second. If you guys would like to answer, yes, no, no, but you're working on a strategy. Okay, seems like it's settled right around even for yes and no. Around 38% yes, 38% no, and 23% not yet. So we'll close that poll, and there was one other polling question. And Eric mentioned story maps, so let's go to this question. Are you using ArcGIS story maps to share information? Yes, you're using the new story map builder. Maybe you're using the old story map templates. No, but you're interested in using story maps, you hope to. And what's a story map? So if you would take a second just to answer the polling question. I know I mentioned at the beginning of the user group meeting that I love story maps, not specifically for the work I do in water. I think our customers do great things, but just personally, I love using story maps for all kinds of different things and sharing information. Let's see what we're looking at. 47% are saying they're not using story maps, but they hope to. And about 20%, they're using the new story map builder. Very cool. Haven't really used that much myself yet, just explored it a little bit. 16%, they're using the old story map templates. I like the templates, but the new thing's pretty cool. And we have about 15% saying, what's a story map? All right, very interesting. I'm going to close this poll. What do you think, Eric? Were you expecting those results?
I mean, that's kind of where I'm hoping for. Like we've always got so much new technology coming out at Esri. So I'm really excited for those of you that might not be familiar with the new builder or asked what is a story map, getting to really see a little bit about what it is. And so we're going to kind of pull a whole bunch of different aspects so far of our meeting together. And the whole theme that we're going to follow, as Krista alluded to in there, is taking a look at identifying or working to identify lead service lines using ArcGIS Insights. So before jumping into the individual applications, let's actually go ahead and talk a little bit about how all of these parts do come together. So if you've spoken with us, or maybe you've attended something like the user conference in the past, you've probably seen a slide that looks like this. And it really is just kind of meant to take like, what is GIS, and break it down to these three different systems that we have. The system of record, the system of engagement, and the system of insight. Just as a kind of a real quick overview of this though, is, the system of record is, okay, great, you've mapped your assets, where are your water valves, your mains, your manholes, etc. What do you know about them, diameter, material, etc. That's your system of record. That's your GIS at its core. But the goal of that is not just to make it be this digital thing that kind of sits in a digital filing cabinet. No, we want to take this and we want to make it accessible to others. And that's where the system of engagement comes into play. And that's really a lot of what we've seen from our presentation so far. So for those organizations out there that are using the quick captures, the survey 123, maybe the older collector, the newer field maps, allowing your organization to work with that data, collect assets, perform inspections out in the field, that's your system of engagement. And I really like to think of it almost as kind of like a day-to-day operations. Yeah, I need to collect data, I need to look up information, inspect and whatnot. But then there's the system of insight. And I think this is something that like all utilities should like really work to strive for, because what the system of insight does, it allows you to pull on all kinds of data that's out there, data that you own, or data that maybe you get from some external agency, or from the Living Atlas, as we heard talked about when it was regarding like the weather data. Pulling in all this data, and especially that data that's coming in day after day that accumulates over time, working with insights to detect those trends, or working with the system of insights to detect those trends and patterns. So what we're really going to spend our time focusing on in this presentation is the system of insight and the system of engagement through ArcGIS Insights and ArcGIS Story Maps. So again, that system of insights is just your ability to collect data over time, come up with those trends and patterns. And with the title, we want to go from data to information. And what that implies is that if you want to get into the nuance of it, is that data is just a bunch of numbers. It doesn't really have much clarity or meaning to it. But when you take it and you start to find those trends and patterns, that's information. And that's basically usable knowledge that you can then use to drive decisions. Maybe it's how to do capital improvement projects, or maybe it's where to start taking a look to do lead replacement projects as well. All kinds of different projects that are out there, just as long as you're willing to take your data and maybe start to push it around a little bit. And I think you'll see how easy it is to do this with ArcGIS Insights. And speaking of ArcGIS Insights, what exactly is it? I've been talking about it here a little bit, and I know some of you mentioned from the survey at the beginning that you're excited to maybe learn a little bit more about it, but it's really meant to be this analytical tool set that's usable for GIS and non-GIS professionals alike. So if I can check over on my dashboard about 3 screens away, I can see that about 10 of you came in saying that you have never used ArcGIS before. And ArcGIS Insights is even just a really great way to get started with it. And what you can produce with it is more than just maps. As you can see on the screen, there's these workbooks that have these different visualizations of data. It's not just about maps. It's about creating those different time clocks that you might see at the very bottom of the screen, line graphs, bar graphs, scatter plots, this ability to take large amounts of data and quickly chew through it to find trends and patterns, but also even have the workflows that you've completed be recorded for you, as you can see by that flow chart on the right, for maybe review processes or to repeat a process as well. So it's great that we can perform some of these analyses, but we also still want people to be able to access it, see them, and share it. So the system of engagement comes back into play here as well. It's taking something like the analyses that you've done and making it accessible to others within your organization or external to your organization as well. So that system of engagement, working with your data day in and day out, and we saw it, like I mentioned, with those mobile applications earlier, but it can also be other web applications like these things called story maps, these web pages that pull together all different types of media, maps, pictures, audio, video, text, that really allow you to create this cohesive picture of a story or something that you want to share with someone at an organization. And there's all different types of configurable applications we have out there. And just for a quick little bit of definition, configurable means no coding, which is really kind of nice that you can now build some extremely engaging web pages without having to write a single line of code. And as I've said in the past, for me anyways, a good day is a day that I don't have to write a line of code. So coding can do so much, but if you're not familiar or not comfortable, there's still so much you can do without having, a strong background, even if you do want to build these web applications. So what does a story map look like? Well, again, it's this ability to pull together data and text and pictures. And I don't know about you, but I really like this one in the front here. I was looking up examples to be able to show for my presentation. I'm personally a fan of a good pun when it comes to sharing data out there. So, kudos to, the city of Watertown that decided to call their lead story map called Get the Lead Out. But it's still just meant to be this way that you can interact with people, share information. And like I said, we're going to off-road it. We're going to build a story map, and we're going to do an ArcGIS Insights analysis. So let's go ahead and let's get out of the PowerPoint and let's look at what we can actually do with these applications. So what we're going to see with ArcGIS Insights is that it's this blank workbook. It's really this, this canvas that we can start to work with, and we can pull data from all different locations. I can pull CSV and Excel files from my local computer. I can connect to an ArcGIS Enterprise instance. I can connect to an ArcGIS Online organization. I can connect to external databases. I can pull data from so many different locations. But where can we make this start? Well, if I want to do something with lead service lines and I want to pull some data to maybe get a starting point, well, maybe we might start with actually a little bit of an analysis, a very simple analysis. And in this case here, what I have is, and this is great for those organizations out there that might not yet have a strategy for your lead service line replacement, is all I have is a polygon boundary of a service territory here. And this is just one polygon, but I want to begin to understand where within this service territory I might actually want to take a look, where I might want to begin to do this lead service line replacement. And right now I don't really have much of a direction. So I want to take my territory and break it up into smaller districts effectively. Maybe you have district metered areas, or maybe you have pressure zones that you might logically work by, or some other breakup by geography. But in the event that even you don't have that, we have tools that allow you to create logical or geometric breakups of your service territory. And in the event you haven't actually taken a look at some of the analytics that just exist alone within the web maps in ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise, I recommend you take a look in here. There's actually a wealth of great tools. But to help me break this up in particular, I'm going to use the Generate Tessellations tool. And that's just a really fancy way of saying I want to create a geometric pattern over top of some polygon that I have. And, so for example, I could break this up into squares, hexagons, rotated hexagons, and whatnot. And I can choose for what area I want to create these hexagons for. I'll use my service territory. And then I could choose how big I want each of these little hexagons to be. Again, I'm just trying to break up my district so it's not just one big polygon, but smaller polygons. And if I were to let this run, it does take a couple seconds, I would end up with a result that looks something like this, a series of those, like I said, hexagons that are each a quarter of a square mile in size. Just this nice little way that I can begin to break up my territory to, again, dive into it deeper. And where I'm going to dive deeper into it is ArcGIS Insights. And so I kind of, went, out a little bit roundabout there of a way for a second to show that. But what it's really meant to highlight, again, is data can come from so many different locations. So if I wanted to pull in that hex bin layer, as we call it, those hexagons, I can search for that and I can bring it in here. And on the left-hand side, I'll be able to see the different layers that I'm working with. And right now, I don't have much to go off of. I just simply know that I have hexagons and they have some arbitrary name that's been given to them. But over here on the right, I can see I have my first card that I can easily resize, begin to work with, and restylize. So to help this stand out a little bit, I'll make my hexagons yellow and I'll throw them on a dark gray canvas base map. But like I said, I want to learn a little bit more about this. And this is where some of the analytics, the analysis tools come into play when we're working with insights. So when I have a map card like this, I'm able to perform an action. And for me, I know what these GIS tools mean, generally speaking, but again, this is meant to be for also non-GIS professionals as well. So if you don't necessarily know what some of these tools do, we can use Find Answers to help guide you towards a tool, to help you perform an analysis. And by using these questions, again, it's going to guide you to what can help you get your job done when you want to perform some work. But in my case here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Enriched Data tool. And I got to say, this is an absolutely phenomenal tool because it allows me to infuse my data with the wealth of data that exists in the ArcGIS Online Living Atlas. So I can come in here, and if I go ahead and pull in data from the United States, and for those of you that might be coming in internationally, we do have data all over the world as well. But here in the United States, we have just a massive amount of data that you can work with. So just as like a real quick example, if you want to better understand your demographics across your territory, and I don't just mean that in terms of racial background or age background or anything like that. If you want to just, I don't know, understand people's spending habits in household, like there's just so, what people are spending their money on. There's so much data in here. I really encourage you to just simply take a look at what's available. But getting back to our theme here of lead service lines, we do have information that comes from a housing background. And since we don't necessarily have data just about lead service lines, I'm going to use the age of structures as a proxy. So older structures being more logical, more likely to have lead service lines. So within housing, I can pull on year built. And in particular, I'm going to take a look at the estimated number of houses built prior to 1940. I'll grab that variable, click apply, and click run. So now this information, this estimated number of houses built prior to 1940 is going to be infused into a new polygon layer. So I can go ahead, I can throw out the old one, but I'll now see that my new one here has an estimation of those older houses. And we'll just quickly go ahead and symbolize this by those houses built prior to 1940. So just like that, now I have a real quick breakdown of my entire service territory with an estimated number of these oldest houses within the area built prior to 1940. And for any of these hexagons, I can hover over top of it, and I can see that we have a range from 0 to 1400, and this one has 998 with about an average of 345 across the entire territory. So even if you don't have a strategy at the moment, just taking your service territory, breaking it up, and using something like this is an excellent place to start. But as I've mentioned, we can do more with insights than just simply making a map or doing an analysis like this. There's other visualizations that are available to us. I have the ability to grab some of my attribute values and I can create like a key performance indicator, which will automatically count up for me the number of those houses. Or I can do create a histogram here, which allows me to see the distribution or spread of the number of houses that have lead services within each of those hexagons. And what's nice about these cards is that they're all linked together, that if I want to understand a little bit better, where do I have those hexagons that are less likely to have lead service lines, I can click on this tallest bar here, see where that is in my district, and then get an estimated count of about 5,000. Or maybe one last visualization to try throwing in here somewhere would be a box plot, that if I wanted to understand again my distribution another way to figure out where are those hexagons that have the most the highest number of older houses, I can quickly see that because I have these different visualizations to work off of that I can easily, as you can see, resize and move around. But maybe I will actually want to compare this also to actual data sets that may have been recorded. Maybe I have data that comes in from some sort of billing system or a CMMS, like one of those Excel or CSV tables I was mentioning before. So I want to compare what we have in our billing system maybe, or some other system, to what we're getting from the Living Atlas. In this case here, I have an export of each one of those service connections within this district here. And for each one, I know it's public material, I know it's private side material of the service line, and I know the latitude and longitude, the X and Y coordinates. So I can easily bring this Excel table in here. I can add data, and just by doing a little bit of dragging and dropping, I'll pull in my Excel table, that table we saw just a moment ago, and get it in here. So by default, as we'll see, I won't have the ability to actually add this to the map. But since I have X and Y coordinates, I can use that to plot these points. Or if I didn't have X and Y coordinates, I could also enable my location through address or other geographies. But I have my coordinates, I have my X and Y, we'll click run, and that's going to give me the positional location of all of those different points. And again, just dragging and drop it gets it right onto the map for me. And what we'll see here is that is quite a mess of points we have there. I'm just going to quickly clean these up so they're all the same size. But I can also open up the table again, and what I'll see very quickly is we have about 80 to 81,000 points. Again, that's pretty large. But as far as I've really been concerned here, I really just want to look at those points that are lead or likely lead. So I can filter this data set down by my material attribute that I have to only show my lead or likely lead on the public side, as well as I can also do the same thing on the private side. So I can take that large data set and I can quickly slice it and dice it to get it down to something a bit more manageable for me. And what I'll see now is if I go into my data table here, I now have about 5,600 instead of that original 80,000 that I was going off of. And what I really like to see is that when I zoom in here, and I can make my map a little bit bigger, is how well we see a relationship between those known points that we brought in from the actual utility, and when overlaid with those hexagons with the data that came in from the Living Atlas, how close of a relationship we start to see with them. That where we have more of those lead points is actually where we have more of those older houses, and where we have those lighter colors, where we have fewer older houses, that we don't see as many lead service lines. So we really do see this nice matching up of the data that the utility had to the information that was actually coming in from their database when compared to the infused data from that enriched tool that we ran just a few moments ago. But maybe I would even want to take this and maybe find a better way of visualizing it than just a bunch of dots. And one of my favorite ways of visualizing data is through something like a heat map. And again, we just start to see this really strong relationship between where we have our points and the underlying hexagon. So a good comparison of those two data sets. But what I also want to do is I actually want to better understand how these points that I brought in relate to those hexagons that we have. So I'm going to quickly bring in that enriched data set one more time down here as a map. I'm not going to clean it up this time as much, but I'm also going to bring in my points. And instead of just adding it as a layer, I can do that spatial aggregation. And that's what's going to automatically count up for me the number of points that fall inside of each one of those hexagons. And again, having this quick ability to visualize and symbolize my data. So within each of my hexagons, now it's telling me the number of those points that I have that are lead or likely lead. If I wanted to maybe even go one step further with this, if I want to find maybe a correlation or a relationship between what the Living Atlas told us and what our own system told us, I can grab both of those variables as well, drag them and drop them in here, create a real quick scatter plot to see what that relationship is. And for anyone out there who might be a fan of statistics, I even have the ability to quickly pull in what our linear relationship is. And I can see I have an R-squared value there of just over 0.4. So a moderate relationship actually does exist, but that's just really showing that the data that's coming from the Living Atlas is matching up pretty well with the data that's coming from our underlying database. So if you have data, you've got a great starting point. Even if you don't have data, insights might be a really great place to start to take your territory, break it up, and learn a little bit more. So one of the things I used to always fear about doing GIS analysis, though, is I would take my final product here, so proud of it, I would take it to my manager, and he might say, Eric, that's a good analysis, but can we make the hexagons a little bit smaller? And there's that part of me that just kind of dies on the inside a little bit because now I have to go back and redo my whole entire analysis. But what's nice about ArcGIS Insights is that the whole time it's been recording for me the entire process that I've been doing on its own automatically. So if I wanted to review this workflow or share it to someone else, that's certainly possible. But this also allows me to replay my entire analysis as well with changed input data sets. So in my case here, I'm going to go ahead and let's say my manager had asked me to make those hex bins with that generate tessellations tool a little bit smaller. So I have my hex bins that are a 1/10 of a mile in size. I'll add them in here real quickly. And what I'm able to do is I'm able to take my hex bins 1/4 mile. I can say update. Maybe it be my hex bins that are a 1/10 of a mile in size. Click update, and where you see those circles doing the wave right now, that's this process rerunning. And in a few moments, I'll actually have redone my entire analysis with those smaller hex bins on the fly. So if I jump back in here, I can now see that my hexagons now are a bit smaller. And for example, I can see my R-squared values adjusted a little bit. So in the event you need to repeat analyses, ArcGIS Insights is great for that as well. But to continue on with the theme of being more than just a system of insight, we want to be able to take this and share it with others. So I might be able to do something like, take what I have here and really do a nice job of cleaning it up. All of the same information we saw before is available here. Just, all I've done is really change the color, resize things, reposition them. But if I wanted to take this and share it out to others, I'm able to do that. Because again, the goal is not to keep data for me. The goal is to make the data accessible to others to drive decisions based upon it. So I can come down here, I can take my page, and if I wanted to, I could go ahead through the process of sharing it. It would become like any other item in ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise. And then you can share it to groups, individuals, publicly, across the organization, etc. And if you were to go through this process, it then asks you, well, now that you've created this new item, how do you want to share it? You can get the full page for it, or you can get an iframe, because we see many organizations want to take this information and embed it within an existing web page that they have. So there's just plenty of options that can allow you to determine how you want to share this data. And what that might actually look like if I were to come in here, just initially would be something like this. I have a web page. I can share this URL out to others, and you're still going to have this interactive interface that can allow people to go through and click on the different items that you have. So it's not just a static picture. It still retains that dynamic interface even after you've shared it. So speaking of sharing things, moving on from working with ArcGIS Insights in the system of Insight, that's where some like story maps really come into play. So for those of you out there that aren't familiar with story maps, or for those 18 of you who said that's what you're most excited about in the survey at the beginning of our presentation today, let's go ahead and take a look at this. How can we build a story map? Now, to be honest with you, I'm off-roading here a little bit, so it's not going to be the cleanest thing you've ever seen in the world, but I want to show you how incredibly simple it is to work with a modular environment like this. So what do you have when you start off? You have this really simple blank template, but it's really up to you and the creativity that you have, that if you want to come in, give it a story that meets your needs, a subtitle, whoever the author is. Let's go ahead and get my name out. Get my name out of there, and you can really give it that look and feel that you want. So like right now, black text on a white background is pretty boring, but I can add in a splash of color by dragging and dropping in a picture. Maybe you have that picture of the water tower that Krista was talking about. Maybe you just get a real simple picture from GIS. I just threw a mains layer on a dark gray base map, took a screenshot, and again, just ways that you can make this more than just a boring web page or another report, but actually make it a little I don't know, give it a sense of personality, really, is what you're able to do. And I can change the design of this. It's all configurable. Again, no code. Like change the way my cover page looks, make the picture bigger, smaller, or side by side. Or I can even change the theme. If you want to create your own theme, that's possible. Or if you want to go with some of the stylized options that we've come up with, you can choose from them. So I'm going to kind of go with this darker theme here, a black background with white text. And you can make this have whatever style and feel you want for your organization. Maybe you have your own colors that you use at your utility. But after I've gone past something like the title page, it's really down here where I can just add in all these different modular components. I can throw in text or a button that'll take me out to an external page. If you have an existing map, if you have pictures, videos, or other pages that you want to embed, there's just limitless options of what you want to do. And there's some phenomenal examples out there that I'll show in a little bit of what other customers have done. So, maybe I just throw in a quick block of text or something that can act as a, real quick heading for me. And that's pretty small and pretty boring, but, I can come in here and I can, I can make this, a little bit more easier to read, make that, something like a larger heading. I don't know, some people like put in, separators, spaces to add in a little bit more color. Maybe you have text or a message that you want to share out with your organization, let other people see. So, I just, grabbed a block of text here as a real quick example. I can make it stand out a little bit more with, large paragraph text. I can make it bold. I can make it italicized. I can change its color, do whatever necessary. Or maybe, since this is following along the theme of lead service lines, something else we can do is maybe you have a lead service line viewer at your organization. So here's just kind of an example from DC Water. They made this, application that allows people to, come in here and see, what's on the utility side, what's on the public side. And this is a really great application, but if we want to put it in the context of something else, a story map can really help out with this. So I'll just grab its URL and I'll just throw it in here real quickly and embed it. So if you have those other applications that you've made, be it dashboards, web app builders, viewers, etc., you can take them and you can embed them within this story map to help make a story map be kind of this one-stop shop. So even as I go through here, it's just, there's our applications. Don't have them existing out in space. Pull them all together. Another way we can work with our different elements that we want to add to this might be one of our what we call an immersive experience. And my favorite is a sidecar. If any of you have worked with the old story map journal in the back in the days, I know that was always my favorite. This sidecar allows you to have that same look and feel where you have a main content on the right and text and pictures scroll by on the left, or vice versa. I can come in here and I can add like these series of slides in here then as well. So some of those old things that used to exist in the old story maps are being pulled into the new story map here as well. So maybe as an example, maybe there's a video that you want to share out with others. Again, this is just a real simple example here, but maybe this you have a YouTube video that you've produced for your organization, or something else that's been released maybe by a local municipality. We can grab that URL and we can embed that right in here as well. So again, all these different forms of media coming together in one place. So that's one slide, one part of the sidecar. I could add in another that would allow me to pull in maybe a map that you have from your organization. So all that content you're creating, all that data you're working with, it can be reused in more ways that you can imagine. So we'll add a map, and maybe just for our example here, I'll pull in that service territory map that we saw a while back, that I can then easily configure. What layers do I want to make visible or not visible? How do I want to let people be able to interact with this? Do I want them to be able to pan around or search for features? Do I want there to be a legend or not? You can work to configure this to meet your needs and show what you want it to show. And maybe I'll then throw in one more here just to kind of illustrate how maybe we could pull in like an external web page. So the city of Philadelphia, they have a great lead map web page here that has all kinds of text and URL, and they've embedded a map within it. But if I wanted to take this, I could embed this as well within my story map. So let's just go ahead and, again, just be able to pull on those other external websites or other information that you have. And now, again, it's all in one place. So maybe this prevents people from having to do a little bit of jumping or dancing around. So now you can see I have like this sidecar that I scroll through. So instead of it just kind of being one long page just from top to bottom that someone scrolls down, something like a sidecar kind of breaks it up a little bit. And also then again, still allows you to pull in all those different forms of media. And maybe the last thing that I'd go ahead and throw in here, just to make sure we're keeping on theme with that insights page that I made before, is I'm going to take the URL that I got from ArcGIS Insights when I went to go share this. And again, one more time, we'll use the embed function. I'll click add, get this in here. It's going to be a little bit scrunched up at first, but what I can do is I can take this and I can make it a little bit wider. And if you may have noticed here, one of the things I did was when I took the Insights page and I gave it this darker theme, I made sure I was using the same color as the background of my story map. So that way my Insights page and my story map are blended with the same background color, and it allows for this much more cohesive story to be told. So sometimes things as simple as changing colors can make a big difference. And even when I have my Insights page embedded within my story map, I still have that ability to interact with it as well. So Insights remains just as interactive as before, even when it's put inside of other applications like this story map here. So that's just meant to be a quick overview of what it looks like to create a story map completely from scratch. I mean, sure, I'll admit I had some text ready to go and I had some URLs ready to be put in place, but if you have a story to tell, it's that easy. Just take your creativity, take the maps and information that's out there and really just start building something. And so, to show what other organizations are doing, because, that's one thing that's great about user groups or data that's been shared out publicly or products that have been shared out publicly, having the ability to see what other organizations are doing. So, here's that, the title that I like, the Get the Lead Out, from the city of Watertown. They just did a nice job of like pulling together a scheme of color, pictures that people can, look at, or buttons that take people out to learn a little bit more. If I scroll down a little bit further, I can see they actually embedded their lead service line information here, just a quick, simple map with 2 different colors. I like how they put a dashboard in here, just a really simple dashboard, like not a whole bunch of buttons, just big numbers that allow you to quickly understand what's going on and the work that this utility is doing to improve the work within their territory. Or maybe it's a story map about, replacement inventory status. Again, just, pictures that you can scroll through that really start to bring information to life. It's not just a black and white web page with a picture or two. It really becomes a lot more immersive. And one of the things that I really like that this group did here at the California Water Boards was they also included instructions with this. So, for some of us who are GIS professionals, like when I see a map, it's like, of course I'm going to try and scroll in, zoom in, pan around, and take a deeper dive into it. But for people that might not be as familiar, providing instructions can be really nice. And I was a huge fan of when I saw this, where people can be given instructions on how to interact with this particular map. Just other examples, it doesn't have to be just lead service lines. It can be for anything that you want to share out publicly within the organization. These folks here put in, a whole, story map a whole video about, your utility bill, maybe where your money is going. And they really tried to tell a story about how, they've been doing, these restoration projects, how they've cleaned it up. So if you want to find a great way to get information out to others, like I just encourage you, if nothing else, just try taking a look at a story map. Again, just extremely immersive, ways you can get all kinds of information available out to others. Take another one here, look at this, mapping a stormwater drainage system. Just more information. This one was meant to provide information about the difference between MS4 and combined sewer systems. Like, if people don't know the difference, a story map can help to educate that. Maybe you have a campaign taking place, or even just a simple question: why collect this data? Why bother? And use something like a picture to encourage people to be more aware of why this is important. And one last example here, not having anything to do with lead at all, but just a great example of a story map at the San Juan Water Commission. Just again, pulling in maps and pictures. And what I really liked about this one was this one used the story map tour that's available within the new design for story maps. It also existed in the old one as well, but I can scroll through this, and as I kind of hop through the different parts of their utility, the map in the background automatically updates, zooming me in, zooming me out, telling me about these different projects with some pictures to really paint a larger idea of what exactly is going on and what's taking place and the work that they're doing. So, to really just like pull it all together, there's so many different applications across the ArcGIS system. You saw some from the other presenters, and I just wanted to provide an example of what it looks like to maybe take some of that data you're collecting day to day or other data sets and how you can analyze it by just dragging and dropping, and then take it and sharing it through something like a story map. So for those of you that have never seen these applications before, or maybe you haven't looked at them in a while, I highly encourage you, go ahead, take a look, give them another shot. There's really a lot that you can begin to do and unlock when you work with these different applications. So with that, I'll bring my presentation to a close, but I'd really like to thank you all for your time today and sticking it out here for the last presentation. And so again, thank you. And at this point, if anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.